we're coming together to talk about Aloha Aina. Aloha Aina is an 8-week gathering that's happening in Hawaii. And today we're interviewing one of our guides, Elena. And Elena is an absolutely revolutionary woman who has spent her life traveling around the world, sharing her vision for how to create peace on earth through the rebirthing process, to really consider how it is that humans are brought into this planet and that it matters because that has an emotional conditioning. And so I'll let Elena talk more about that herself. Um, but before we dive all the way in, I'm going to share a little bit about Aloha Aina. Aloha Aina is an 8-week gathering. It is a living laboratory that is happening in Hawaii for February and March. And the intention of this is to give people a firsthand experience of what it's like to live in community, to live in communion with a personal and professional integration so we can really learn how to create a work-life balance. And each week, we're going to have a different guide coming in of very diverse modalities. These guides range everything from orgasmic birthing to conscious village creation to climate mitigation and systems design to dancing and singing the Banakuma of the elemental spirits. There's a lot of diversity that's happening across these 8 weeks. And throughout the entire time, there are also facilitated co-working labs, meals eaten together, and field trips around the island to really bring people into the culture and into the magic that Hawaii brings, and doing that within community. So we are actually launching the 8 weeks of Aloha Aina with Elena as our guide, and Elena is bringing in her birth into being method. Um, a little bit about Elena Tonetti Vladimirova. Is that right? Vladimir.
Vladimirova. don't, don't try that.
Okay, thank you. She is the founder and director of Birth into Being, a pioneering leader in conscious evolution with over 40 years of experience. Her work spans from Russia's conscious birth movement to creating birth camps with wild dolphins. Elena has influenced socioeconomic shifts through business management seminars and contributed to the citizen diplomacy efforts that helped end the Cold War. She's featured in the United Nations sponsored book, A Force Such as the World Has Never Known, alongside 30 global women leaders, and I believe has also created a documentary. So, Elena, we're really grateful to have you here on the show. Could you introduce yourself?
Oh gosh. Introduce myself. I wasn't ready for that. I'm a dancer. I love dancing. Um, all types of dancing, including with life and life force herself. And I was happily retired for 5 years after dedicating my life to serving humanity. I was teaching in 58 countries in 25 years, zooming a lot, pollinating the continents with the concept of neutralizing birth trauma. My work started with working with pregnant women, preparing them for orgasmic birth. But then, pretty early in the game, we figured out that whatever it takes to bring a woman from being terrified of giving birth into the state of confidence and power to give her baby out into this world in the middle of nowhere with in dignity and gracefully and beautifully and quickly. And basically, it's the same mechanism that requires undoing the damage from her own birth that is required for any person, a man, a woman, a young person, old person, to undo the damage from their own birth. Basically, we understood that the suffering in birth, the agony that women go through when they're giving birth, is nothing but a bad habit. A bad habit inherited through the female lineage from like generations and generations of our female ancestors. So it's kind of automatically handed down from mother to daughter, that it's not the original possibility of human body, because the power that created everything, including us, it created all the species on this planet. And procreation couldn't have just accidentally slipped off of the original intention of this species of humankind walking this earth. It was actually embedded like with any other species. So technically speaking, our bodies, our hormonal landscape is completely able to provide our ability to procreate like any cat or wild animal, a horse, or um,
And
a
where do you think, because I love how you started by helping us just imagine a woman confidently walking into the process of giving birth, feeling graceful, feeling strong, and feeling connected to the natural process. Where do you think the human narrative went astray from the process of us just giving birth?
Well, the thing is, our ability to give birth like any cat is tied with our ability to stay relaxed and stay in the body. So whenever the impulse of amino acids that form stress hormones enters the bloodstream, the cervix locks. So basically, if a woman is relaxed and saturated with oxytocin, as is logical and natural for the body to experience when the baby is ready to come out, the woman's body is supposed to be flooded with oxytocin hundreds of times more than any drug, ecstasy, LSD, mushrooms can possibly provide. It's a natural lab in the brain that is supposed to make a woman like completely open and surrendered and stretchable, not not holding anything back, not contracting. That's the natural state of laboring woman when her bloodstream is absolutely flooded with oxytocin. That makes her really, really high, and she doesn't even feel the pain. And instead, we're flooded with all kinds of adrenaline type of hormones when we like habitually programmed and scared of what's coming, when we literally don't know if our body can do something, because a woman learns to give birth by being born. It's as simple. Like a baby girl's body activates on her ability to give birth when she is being born. She is literally absorbing and registering all the chain of chemicals and reactions to those chemicals from the mother's body as she is spiraling down the birth canal. So if a woman was born via C-section, or if she was born in the war zone, or in the middle of famine, or in the middle of some domestic violence situation, which was a norm, as far as we can see for thousands of years, our reality was not very nice. The bloody history, the amount of dangers that was lurking in the corners. There could be an army of enemy soldiers coming through our village, and it's recorded in the DNA from our female lineage for thousands of years. It's just going through and through, automatically handed down. Basically, I think that the proverbial original sin that a lot of traditions and scriptures talk about, I think it's that bad programming, that bad habit of pumping adrenaline and all kinds of um, danger associated um, amino acids into the bloodstream that actually keep the cervix tight. Instead of when you're high, everything opens up.
And
Your mind, your heart, your yoni, everything is just becoming really, really available for expansion. And when it's fear, when it's signal of danger, the cervix becomes like a steel frame that
Mhm.
would require, of course, steel cutting objects, or chemical induction, because um, nature's merciful mechanism supports the female of the species ability to run for her life during labor and not drop the baby. For example, you are a mama deer that is in the middle of labor in the bushes somewhere, and she senses or hears a predator. What is
Mhm.
she going to do? She needs to run for her life, right? So her cervix instantly locks. So she is able to move fast and keep the baby inside. So this is what happens to a woman when she enters the hospital. All the smells, all the sights and rude questions of the staff, and finding the bed and the place to be, and being treated and measured and checked, and you have to answer a lot of cognitive questions like, what's your social security number? When you're in labor, when you're supposed to be pumping oxytocin, all of a sudden you're yanked out of that luscious surrendered space into who knows what, and a woman starts pumping um, adrenaline, and of course they um, upgraded it to the status of norm and say, oh, it's false labor. It wasn't false labor, it's just you scared a woman, so now you have to send her back home. And it's really um, odd practice to treat a laboring woman as a sick, as an incapable person, and not trust them. But the thing is, in medical textbooks, there is no description of normal, natural, empowered birth. It's in writing in our doctors' Bibles that a modern woman is incapable of giving birth. So they have to learn how to chemically and physically and mechanically um, manipulate her into
Mhm.
being useful and helpful, and charge a lot of money for it.
Mhm.
Because if she gives birth by herself at home, nobody gets paid, you see? So
Mhm.
this is a very, very tricky situation we're in. We're conditioned normally to
You know,
recognize in natural, forceful, very damaging situation as normal. And
the the first time that I ever heard about orgasmic birthing was really surprised. It was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and my teacher at the time, Amber Hartnell, who, funny enough, you're her teacher, she gave me the full transmission of what one of her births looked like. And I'm bringing this in because I feel like it's important, because that story of the scared, shut down, tight, constricted birthing story is so common. So whenever she shared her story of going into an orgasmic state, being in the ocean, holding on to banyan, like holding on to tree roots in the water, and bringing a child into the planet in that state, it changed something in me. And more importantly, it helped me really also understand how, whenever we are experiencing large changes in life, those large changes in life are very much so a rebirth. And whenever I met you, when we began these conversations, you helped me create the correlation of, by doing the rebirthing method, we're not only changing the way that we can potentially bring children into the planet, because this work is for men and it's for women as well. And some people may not desire to become to hold child or to give birth to their own children, but something that was amazing was how this work actually allows you to go through those significant life changes, not re-experiencing the patterns of trauma that you had from your physical birth. Um, and so I'm curious, how did you go into number one, opening this field of work for men as well? And what are some of the stories of orgasmic births that you've seen that have been physical births, or maybe just significant life changes still using the work?
Well, I made a documentary about it. It's called Birth as We Know It. Birth as We Know It. And I actually feature Amber's orgasmic birth in there, along with 10 other ecstatic and orgasmic births that are absolutely paradigm shifting experiences to even watch them. It's embedded in that imagery, the direct transmission of neutralizing our own birth trauma. It's really a powerful image to take in and kind of saturate your nervous system with possibilities, because we are exposed to about 100 of episodes of horrible, horrible births by the time we're 20 in our culture, in the movies and the sitcoms and health ed classes, from our aunties and girlfriends. We are consistently exposed to the notion that it should be absolutely horrible. The thing is, human beings are highly suggestible um, uh, creatures, like basically any of it. Humankind realized that the way you treat the young one of the species, that's what they would consider the norm. It was used for thousands of years to train circus bears and work horses and war camels and work elephants. They knew thousands of years ago that if you take a wild horse that knows how to run freely, there's no way it's going to become a war horse, right? It's like that easy to translate it to human behaviors. Like if you are a child of a soldier or a slave, that's your norm. So if you're born into suffering, suffering becomes your basic settings. So there was this incredible experiment done about 150 years ago when this big fish, pike, was kept in a glass aquarium and fed small fishes, and it's a predator fish. The moment the small fish is fed, it just becomes food. So then they put a glass wall inside the aquarium. So the pike could see the small fish and would charge to get it, but hit itself on the glass wall. And basically, it was repeated over and over and over again until it stopped trying. Then, when it stopped trying, they removed the glass wall and flooded the aquarium with fish. The pike never tried again to get the fish. In fact, it died of starvation, being surrounded with food. This experiment was done 150 years ago. It's well documented in the right places. So I am seeing that same thing is being translated to human behavior and in schools, in kindergartens, when we're taught a very specific behaviors and habits, and we're basically schooled not to recognize things that are natural for our well-being and strive for, like, just being a good girl, being a good boy. And this is absolutely the same line translates into birthing. So how do we involve men into this work? Absolutely the same way. So women inherit this bad habit of agony in birth. Men inherit this really bad habit of keeping up with Joneses and ignoring their true nature, true calling and gifts and talents, and just, doing what they're expected to do. So we are in a pretty sorry state right now, and as a civilization. So my work was like jump started when I realized that there is a way of actually reprogramming our basic settings, that neutralizing that original um, limiting belief of this is who I am, this is where I'm supposed to live. And it stands true for men, women, anybody who is ready to break the shell from the inside, like a chicken inside the eggshell. It either matures to the point when the next step is breaking the limits, or it dies inside. And there is that moment, of course, if you break the shell before the certain level of maturity, you become somebody's breakfast. So it's very important to really get into the transformational experience at the right time. Because when it happens sooner, then it just goes in vain. Then you learn the words, all the correct wording, and how those words interweave with each other, but it doesn't land in the body, like in the blood and bones and tissues of the actual instrument of our spirit. Because the spirit by itself is quite impotent. It can't do anything in the 3D. So we have to have the alignment with the body. So the body is driven by the spirit's intention to walk this earth. And this can only happen when we have the connective tissue between the body and the spirit, which is the soul. When we can align all three of them, the physiology, the emotions are the expression of the soul, and the drive, the sense of purpose, the intention, the mental aspects of our capacity to figure things out. How should everything fit together, and how our desires could be manifested. So this is very much about birth. This is very much about doing anything. The project you're working on in Hawaii, the new relationships that you're stepping into, or attracting the right person. Because if we're just attracting from our physiology, just go for what we are lustful after, then it might not be on the same page with our spirit or our soul. It's just the connection on level of physiology. That's not going to work. If we are just attracted to somebody on the heart level, and the physiology is not involved, oh, he's my best friend and he's a great guy, I just don't want to have sex with him, that's not going to work. And if we're just connected on the, like, it's a spirit family, we're on the same page, we're building community, but the emotionally, I don't really trust that person, because there is a lot of ego in his drive. There is a lot of that happening when the drive is driving, but the heart is not activated on the same page. And there is a lot of power dynamics, power struggle, that really kills the majority of communities that I see. Since I got activated in 81, and started seeking my peer, my true family, I've seen a lot of communities failing because of that, because the alignment between all the different aspects of our um, understanding of who we are and on what level we're connecting with other people, that it wasn't in the basement. It wasn't the the grounding power of the endeavor that people got involved, and they were either driven by an idea or by pure attraction. Either one of them, when one of them wins, the whole system loses. That's the whole point. That the only system that has the capacity to come to completion in its own right, into manifesting harmoniously, is the one where people come meeting each other on three levels. Because otherwise, it's, imagine like a bird, a fish, and an elephant are trying to build a community. So the bird is the spirit, the fish is the reptilian physiology, and the elephant is doing the work, but it's digging a trench in the wrong place, in the wrong direction. It has to be all aligned.
We definitely need a Noah's Ark to consider how every species and every consideration of the human psyche can come to that next level of consciousness and can come to that next level of embodiment that you're talking about. And I just want to reflect on one thing that I really appreciated about you, and the reason that it was like an obvious please come be a guide for part of Aloha Aina, like please. And we're so excited that you're coming is because of your embodiment and just seeing how it is that you have made yourself available to the local community here in Ashland. I know that a lot of your work is still very global. You have a large digital community and you maintain a local presence. And I've had the benefit of getting to work with you through my relationships, and you bring very subtle, deep nodes for people to reflect on, and you have your own amazing stories. And so the ability to bring you together in person in Hawaii so people can not only listen to what you're saying but receive your direct transmission from being with you in person is a huge opportunity. I'm curious, what does it look like? You'll be teaching. There's 4 days. So through the structure of the week, everybody for Aloha Aina is every week there's a different guide. We're launching the very first week of February. Elena will be teaching, and she'll be bringing us into her birth into being method. Ideally, we'll be able to watch the documentary that she made. We'll go into orgasmic birthing techniques, relationship and relating, but what does that look like? Like, what will we do over those 4 days together?
Um, I have well, I can't even take credit. It's kind of landed through me. um, so Birth into Being method has 40 very, very different techniques and exercises and processes. And some of them are done in groups as a whole. Some of them are done as one-on-one with me. Some of them are in small groups of 3 or 4 people. And they are very, very different. The main and most important common denominator, and that all of the experiences are experienced in a slightly altered state. So first of all, I will take a group and through a different breathing technique, movement technique. It's like a 5-step program when the whole group, with no substances. I don't do any substances. Just naturally go together in a slightly altered state. And from that state, we have the experience. And then there is an incredibly powerful integration process at the end of the experience that allows that experience to really root in the flesh and bones. It's kind of what makes it different, because if you're doing some experience, some exercise just from your monkey mind, it remains as a mental construction. And then on top of it, if you don't integrate it properly, it remains just another mental construction that is not quite connected on the cellular level with the body and the limbic system of the brain that governs our emotions. So what we will be doing is really utilizing our ability to go into that space in our psyche that is beyond the story, beyond the victim mentality. Before we began identifying as a victim of birth trauma or sexual trauma or any kind of emotional abuse trauma, go beyond the space that had an actual reality, and we would neutralize that identity as victim from that space beyond the story. There is nothing else I can tell right now, because describing my processes is not going to do you any good.
Mhm.
But what I can tell is that it's extremely efficient and
You know,
pretty fast.
You just I mean, I'm really excited. We're celebrating a lot here. You have just come out of retirement too, and yeah, like, welcome back. Thank you. And as you come back out of retirement, you hosted one gathering in Ashland, very like, was that 2 weeks ago now?
It's a week. It ended a week ago.
So it only ended a week ago, and just so people could understand, what were some of the breakthroughs that you saw happen, so people can understand how this might impact their life?
Um, for different people, it has a very different outcome. Some people drop their power struggle and grow intimately close together with their partners. Some people come to realization that this is the end of the story and go home and say that they're leaving or that somebody has to leave, and they leave their jobs, their families. It's a dangerous experience, I'll tell you, to completely neutralize your trauma, because our choices are driven by our limbic imprint, which is our basic settings, by our trauma responses. Most of our relationships are trauma bonding. So when you neutralize that basic setting within your own nervous system, all of a sudden everything you built from that place falls away. So it's kind of, you know, enter at your own risk. And sometimes when there is ripeness for that, it just comes as a catalyst, and all the necessary decisions that seemed impossible all of a sudden become obvious and clear. And it's like, how did I not see that before?
Mhm.
And um, and it's not like, well, I had basically 100% success rate with infertility, never announcing it as infertility treatment, just neutralizing birth trauma, which, in my understanding, our own birth trauma is number one source of infertility. That's very obvious to me, because whenever women came and did that, all of a sudden they would get pregnant. Even this one friend of mine had already IUV scheduled, um, in vitro, scheduled in 2 weeks, prepared $100,000 for it. Everything was like ready. And she got pregnant after just a weekend workshop right before the procedure was supposed to be done. My dear friend Jaya, it's really an amazing story with her, because she was told by multiple doctors that she cannot conceive, and tried artificial insemination already, and um, and all of a sudden, just one weekend, and she got pregnant.
That I mean, that's incredible because, yeah, so many people are facing the inability to have kids, and there's a lot of emotion tied to that. I'm
Yes.
like, I was super surprised to hear from you, and even recently in Bali, working with the birthing center out there, that many men are coming into this field, and that men are increasingly interested and learning about birthing processes, conscious birthing. And so many people might be coming in that are curious about birth doula work, somatic healing work, conscious therapy, family therapy, men, single women, people unsure if they want to have kids or not. How can you speak to those people? Like maybe they're not in a relationship or looking to have kids, but they are turned on by what it is that you're sharing.
Well, the basic criteria is: are you feeling held back in life? Are you feeling like your life force is not fully available to you? That's the birth trauma speaking. So, men or women, a lot of men have incredibly severe birth trauma, which is circumcision, because they're being literally tortured. First thing after getting into the body, they experience the most exquisite torture that is available in the human form, because that foreskin that is being cut slowly without anesthetics right after birth is cutting through 20,000 erogenous nerve endings that are specifically there to experience pleasure. This is agony like nowhere else in the body. For example, clitoris has only 8,000 erogenous nerve endings versus 20,000 in the foreskin. So this is our loss, ladies, because, well, it's not funny. It's just, it's nervous laughter because it's we're gonna go easy on them because they're literally blindfolded. The circumcised man has no idea where his sexual partner is in regards to the pleasure of his sexual partner, because that foreskin is the antenna, is the communication device. It's like the high line to between the genitals. It's supposed to receive the signal, and it's electromagnetic transmitter of the communication between genitals. So without it, they are literally have no clue of what's happening with us, like where we are in regards to our pleasure. It's pretty it's pretty sad because a circumcised man feels frustrated, even if he doesn't know that he was circumcised, because everybody else around him in America are, and and a lot of young men don't even know that something is missing. So they get frustrated because on some level they do understand that something is missing, but they don't know what. So they don't know to learn. You see, a man can, technically speaking, learn to read his partner and communicate, and kind of, like a blind man can hear through sounds and tactile sensations. So the circumcised man can use all his other senses to make up for the absent actual organ, but they don't know to learn. That's the thing, that they don't really understand that, they think everything is going so good. Why is she unhappy? That basic frustration of,
Well,
of
I was
between
I was
what?
Well, I was funny enough in Hawaii in 2021, and this huge channel came through about reconsidering circumcision. And it was like a back-to-back phone call with different moms and then a man, and they were all processing circumcision at the same time. So I just shared in the chat an article that I wrote about it on Medium. But circumcision goes into the way that men and women relate to one another in such a deep way, like that trust bond between the mother and the son, and then the osmosis of the way that men and women relate to one another from there. It's really beautiful that you're talking about that, and I'm curious, when the men come to your workshops, are they prepared to have this conversation, or how do they receive it in that environment?
Very good. Very
Mhm.
good. I don't have men that are just, oh, what am I doing here? Usually I have men that like trying to get to my workshops for years. it's, it's they came prepared. So my job is easy. But I have to tell you, out of all types of birth trauma, there are hundreds of them. Circumcision is the hardest. It's like really, really
Wow.
big. Yeah,
Yeah.
my heart goes out to them. But everything else, basically premature cutting of the umbilical cord, it's a major, major assault on the baby. Separating from the mother, and any like bright lights and loud noises, all of that, strangers wiping the baby like it's a kitchen counter, that's abuse. That's baby abuse. We have hundreds of types of birth trauma that are considered normal behaviors in the hospitals. And I've met only, like, I can count on my handful adults that don't carry their birth trauma or carry it well. Among the young children, it's in millions now because we're moving into that space. We have the critical mass of untraumatized humans on this planet right now. It's really for the first time in the recorded history.
Mhm.
Numbers are tipping the scale.
And this is another reason that we're so excited to get you in Hawaii, because Hawaii is a global destination for people that are consciously conceiving, and they're working with the planetary grid lines. They're working with their holistic healing and sense of awareness of there are spirits that are asking to be incarnated, that are asking come into this planet at this time, and there are places where the veil is thinner, so you can be in communion with your child as they're coming in, as well as be surrounded by a community of people that have developed a strong sense of family within individual and collective forms of relating. And Maggie and I have been doing research for the Big Island. We haven't been able to find any birthing centers, let alone get a recommendation to a birth doula on the Big Island, which to me is wild. So y'all, if you're listening, we're looking for birthing center and birth doulas based on the Big Island, because the Big Island is a place where people go, and many people go to have completely natural births, like the way that you're talking about. So things that we're looking forward to taking you on field trips. We're going to take you on field trips. There is a beautiful giant oceanfront hot geothermal heated pool where we can do Watsu and open up the body, doing rebirthing techniques with water and Watsu. There's another retreat center that we're hoping to go and visit and initiate, even just a brainstorming there on that site. Like, what would it look like if somebody wanted to open up a birthing center? And let's just use this as our template to imagine. What would it look like if we made this a birthing center? Because the giant tubs already exist. The geothermal heated spring water that comes up from the ocean is already there. It's a beautiful piece of land, permaculture tended by strong feminine. And these are the conversations that we want to have to help reshape culture. And I know that is something that has driven you because you have so much passion. And part of that passion is understanding how this is an important aspect to reshape culture. Um, so I wonder if you would talk about that, but also one of the things that you've done is you've helped establish dolphin birthing camps. And we haven't talked about this yet. So can you give us like the story behind how did that happen? What does it look like? Can we do it again? Because I have there are wild dolphins in Hawaii, which your mornings we're planning to take people to swim with wild dolphins. Yeah, please share.
Um, well, we did it in the 80s in Russia when none of that and the concept of free birth, dolphin birth did not even exist. So that means that there was no restrictions, regulations, and any prohibiting rules against it. So we were doing it undetected for a good decade before it was discovered by the medical establishment and all the rules and laws came into existence that actually a few midwives went to jail for doing that. So it was a real witch hunt that followed up our absolute paradise when we would hold space in the shallow lagoons in the Black Sea, and women would just arrive a couple of weeks before the due date and stay for a couple more weeks and then go back to where they came from. It was pretty accessible, only 2 hour flight from Moscow, for example, down south. And it was not for everybody. It had to be by invitation only for the people who went through the whole program in winter and in spring in Moscow that we organized classes and preparation because you can't just say, oh, Jane Smith can just go to the Black Sea instead of to the hospital. That's not going to happen if she is not on the same page with her body and the baby, because it's a big part of it is the baby's participation. So you have to do a lot of inner work and work out all the debris out of your system in order to be able to have this happen, because there was absolutely no plan B.
Well,
It was in the
I'm
middle of nowhere.
I'm curious, why would somebody want to give birth in the ocean with dolphins? I mean, it's very obvious to me, but this is an extremely far out idea for a lot of people. What would be the benefit of that, and what is the exchange that's happening?
Um, there was no points of selling it. There were only points of earning the right to go there. So there was absolutely no need to explain or convince. There were women who felt it was the calling, the right thing to do, and we were willing to hold space for them to have that experience, even though um, it was never done before. So there was absolutely no concept of like what might happen. But that's the thing, none of us was contaminated with the pictures of pathology. We were only inspired by a true um, calling of the life force to experience itself to the fullest. And it was the most incredible experience when a woman would go into labor and there is that slight agitation in the camp, like another one is coming through, and everybody would be just in that field of highest awareness, and it would be a very contagious high that she would start generating, and there was absolutely no substances there, and everyone would just start kind of glow in the dark because the majority of the births were happening in the middle of the night, and there was no electricity, so there was no conveniences at all. It was in the middle of nowhere, like no running water, no electricity. That's like nature in its purest expression. But because of that, there was clean water, no um, tourists walking by. It was very private and shallow enough for us not to like struggle with waves. And the thing is, Black Sea doesn't have any sharks, so that was very safe. There is nothing lurking in the dark waters. There was no concern. And in shallow lagoon, the water would be warm enough from the day's sun exposure, and especially in the moonlight, it was just unearthly beauty. It was, Milky Way or the full moon and the horizon visible like city line on the other side of the bay, just the sliver of lights, and then there is a gigantic mountain in the back holding us safe and invisible for the outside world. It was magical. And why wouldn't anybody want to do that? That was absolutely amazing. And I usually would spend there the whole summer, um, and go back mid-September when the last person with the due date would be done. And yeah, I think it charged me for the rest of my life. I am still riding that wave, the charge that I received in those days in the 80s.
As you were describing it, I felt it when you said, "There's another one coming." It was like this wave of white energy came, and what a miraculous experience. It's beyond the imagination, and I'm incredibly grateful, yeah, to hear these stories and to see what it is that comes together. I want to open it up to the group because I know that we're coming to the end of your share here. Does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask Elena while we're here live? If so, please unmute yourself and ask away.
We do have to.
More so just a comment. Thank you so much. That was so, so beautiful to hear, and just so many like beautiful pinpoints that I'm excited to just dive deeper with in Hawaii. And it's so true. This work is for women and men, and it's some of the most important work I think we as humanity can do, and especially to help bring in these new children. And I am excited to show you Hawaii because it truly is um, going to be a new earth city of light, and already is, with all the beautiful communities popping up on this side of the island that we will be at.
Lovely. I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, and that's the thing, that we need to start somewhere, right? And we need to start with ourselves, because the first um, dozen babies that were born that way, we didn't know the depth of their openness and intelligence and inner freedom, the absence of those limiting experiences. So then they had to go into Soviet school.
Mm.
And there was a lot of drama in there, because they're not used to being treated as like the rest of the people, the kids. And they were objecting, very vocal about being fed a bunch of like incongruities that the majority of children just take in. And
Mhm.
these kids were like, why? What are you doing? Like, this is so not good for me. They were questioning the rules, the teachers. So there was a lot of trouble for parents when these kids entered the system. So the next step was like, okay, we need to create a school for them. Now we need to create a very different um, village for them, because they can't just be born beautifully and go back into the matrix. It's it's like counterproductive, right?
Mhm.
So but for that we need to step up. We need to neutralize our limiting beliefs and our um, the ways we're holding ourselves back.
Wow. Well, this is wonderful. I'm going to walk everybody through. Maggie, if you could put the link in the chat. Um, so
Yeah.
Elena's going to be with us for Aloha Aina. Again, this is an 8-week living laboratory in Hawaii on the Big Island, where we are gathering for embodied regeneration for personal, professional, and planetary regeneration. This is a multi-generational gathering. So you can bring your kids, elders are welcome. There's space for everybody here. And that's the way that the environment's going to be structured. Um, Elena is going to be teaching for the first week of February. So that is the February 2nd to February 8th. And what this includes is all of your lodging, your food, prepared meals eaten together, 4 days of workshops guided by Elena, a fifth day of an on-island field trip where we're going to be visiting the hot pools at the Queen's Bath. We're going to be hiking down one of the volcano craters and working with the steam, the breath of Pele coming out of the earth, and really activating that energy in the land, in our body as we go through the healing. In the mornings, part of our sadhana practice in the mornings for Elena's week specifically is going to the beach just right down the road from where we'll be staying and swimming. And there it is common practice to swim with wild dolphins. Really beautiful experience. And get into the energy and the frequency of those dolphins. You can visit the Luma link that Maggie has shared, and it will take you through the 8 weeks. We've had a beautiful opportunity to learn from Elena here what it is that she'll be offering. So you can also look at the other guides. And then, Maggie, if you wouldn't mind sharing, also, we have opened up early registration. So everybody that's on this call right now, you're automatically given 20% off. And we're really doing everything we can to keep this extremely accessible for everyone. So highly recommend that early bird is going to be available to you for about 3 weeks until November 15th. And so fill out the application on Luma, get your early bird ticket. If you come for 1 week versus the full 8 weeks, there's a significance different in price. We really are encouraging people to have a full community experience. And let me see, let's put this link here.
I have to leave. I have the next thing happening. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm looking forward to this beautiful week on the Big Island. So I'll see you there.
Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much.
See you sooner. Come to
Thank
the
you.
dance. We have a lot of
Yes.
thing happening in Ashland. Come over. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you.